has opined that European countries involved in the slave trade and its accompanying crimes against African people should render a formal apology. He made these comments on Tuesday, August 22nd, 2023, while delivering the keynote address at the opening session of a summit dubbed the Global Convening for the Restitution of African Heritage at the W.E.B. Du Bois Center in Accra. President Akufo Addo also emphasized that calls for repatriation and restitution of cultural properties taken forcefully from the continent should be intensified before adding that reparations for Africa are long overdue.
Let me state that the subject of restitutions must go along with the matter of reparations. No amount of money can restore the damage caused by the transatlantic slave trade and its consequences, which have spanned many centuries. But nevertheless, it is now time to revive and intensify the discussions about reparations for Africa. Indeed, the time is long overdue. If reparations can rightfully be paid to victims of the Holocaust, so reparations can be paid to the victims of the slave trade. And even before these discussions on reparations conclude, the entire continent of Africa deserves a formal apology from the European nations involved in the slave trade for the crimes and damage it has caused to the population, psyche, image, and character of Africans the world over. The Caribbean community, CARICOM, has unequivocally announced its demand for the payment of reparations. And I would urge us to engage with our kith and kin from the diaspora and form a united front to advance the cause of reparations. I'm happy to announce that Ghana has been chosen by the African Union to host, in the latter part of this year, a global conference on reparations for Africa, which will seek to bring together Africans and members of the African diaspora and family of all hues and perspectives to set out a concrete strategy for achieving the goal of reparations. I commend the Open Society Foundation for this event, being held under the theme African Heritage Restitution Movement, which is calling for the return of African cultural materials. It is wholly fitting that these deliberations should take place at this center, named after one of the iconic figures of Pan-Africanism, W.E.B. Du Bois, a man who dedicated his life to the defense and promotion of the interests of Black people everywhere, especially of those in the African diaspora of the Americas and the Caribbean. He was a towering intellectual figure in the great battles for freedom for Black people in the 20th century, work which commended him to the regard of Ghana's first president, the celebrated Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, who offered him Ghanaian nationality and residence. Indeed, he ended his life here, and his remains are buried in these premises to signify his eternal association with our historic goals of realizing freedom and justice for ourselves and for all Black people. He would have been in total sympathy with the aims of our gathering today, and that is why it is appropriate for us to have this discussion in the Du Bois Center. The restitution, return, reparation, and repatriation of stolen and looted African cultural properties under pre-colonial and colonial circumstances have to be issues of major concern to all Africans. These concerns have in recent times dominated public discourse on the continent. Governments, civil society groups, traditional authorities, scholars and researchers have called for the return of African cultural properties that were illegally and shamelessly transported from the continent. I support fully the initiative for the return and reparation of African cultural properties to the continent, as it will help Africans, and in particular, the descendants of the communities, groups, and individuals who created and produced these cultural properties, to reconnect to their history, to their pioneers, to their knowledge and their skills. This reconnection of the past and the present will also help to build new relations with the international community, especially that of Europe, which was principally responsible for the original thefts of the cultural properties. Most of these cultural properties, when returned, will also offer Africans the opportunity to develop local knowledge of the technological, cultural, social, and aesthetic value of the objects.
President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo's stance on the need for European countries involved in the slave trade to offer a formal apology, along with the push for restitution and repatriation of African cultural properties, resonates deeply with the ongoing discussions surrounding historical injustices. The acknowledgement that no sum of money can truly heal the wounds inflicted by the transatlantic slave trade is a significant acknowledgement of the magnitude of the harm that was done over centuries. However, his assertion that an apology accompanied by meaningful restitution can contribute to a sense of closure and reconciliation is valid. Such actions hold the potential to symbolize a moral reckoning on the part of European nations, fostering an environment of mutual understanding and respect between continents.